Hello, I'm Donald Levitt. I'm the chair of Maize and Blue Courage. Of the 8 University of Michigan regents, there are 2 positions which are up for re-election this year. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party will each have 2 candidates for regent in the November election. The Republicans have selected their 2 candidates. The Michigan Democratic Party will select their 2 candidates at their convention on April 19th. There are 3 people running for the 2 Democratic Party regent positions. This evening, we have an opportunity to interview one of those candidates, Amir Makled. Mr. Makled is a partner principal with the Hall Makled law firm in Dearborn, Michigan. He's a trial lawyer who specializes in civil rights, personal injury, and criminal defense work. Mr. Makled received a BBA in finance in 2009 from the University of Michigan Dearborn with high distinction and graduated with a Juris Doctor degree from Wayne State University School of Law in 2012. After Mr. Makled offers his opening comments, we'll open the floor for questions, and we'll definitely end by 7:30 to leave time for people to get ready for the big basketball game this evening.
Well,
Welcome, Mr. Makled. Thank you for joining us.
thank you for the invitation, and it's a privilege and an honor to be a guest among such a distinguished group. Um, and for those that don't know me, again, my name is Amir Makled. I have been practicing law in for nearly 15 years, and in the course of my practice, I have been doing criminal defense work, civil rights work, and really doing some volunteer work as well through a group called the National Lawyers Guild. And it's in my advocacy through the National Lawyers Guild that I got involved in the University of Michigan space. The National Lawyers Guild is a civil rights group that offers pro bono legal services for people who are charged with felonies or and also do know your rights training. So I've often volunteered at community centers, high schools, and different spaces to teach folks about how to deal with law enforcement. So through ICE or with regular law enforcement or the federal or local law enforcement. And in my capacity as a volunteer lawyer for the National Lawyers Guild, that's how I got involved with the University of Michigan. I was asked to represent students who were charged with felonies for their protest activity at the DIAG at the University of Michigan nearly 2 years ago. Um, and it's in that space where I recognize in defending those students that some of the decisions and a lot of the decisions come from the culture that's on campus that's set by the Board of Regents and the administration. And there are moments in any university, especially a system like U of M, where you can win in a criminal proceeding or a civil proceeding, whether in lawsuits. You can win in a courtroom, but the policies and the culture will still be in place on campus. So sometimes you got to get out of the courtroom and into the boardroom. And I never thought of myself as a politician. I've never ran for elected office, but I found that our country's at a crossroads right now, and I found that our university is at a crossroads. In the time that I've been running for this position, I have met folks that are deeply involved in the university system, from faculty and staff to students, to people who are involved in the hospital system, whether it's from the physicians to the workers that make the hospital tick every day. And in my campaign trail, from going from Monroe to Muskegon or Bay City to Benton Harbor, I've been to nearly 72 counties out of the 83 in the state of Michigan. Folks are concerned about the University of Michigan, and they're concerned about the direction of the leadership, and now particularly about the current board and what they've been doing during their tenure. And see, the position of Board of Regent really is a steward for the university, because we're supposed to be controlling and taking the helm of what this public institution is to do for the state of Michigan. It's a service. It's in our Michigan Constitution, and there are 3 universities that have a public trust in our state. U of M is one of them. Wayne State is another, where I went to law school, and Michigan State. And it's the board's position, and it's the board's role to be the guiding light to keep this a public institution that runs smoothly without interruption, without any type of pushback from the public and serving the public. And so, what we're running on is a people's platform and making sure that we're not serving the power brokers that make the University of Michigan system tick. That includes all three campuses and the hospital system, but more so making sure that the people are represented and we have accessible, higher education, affordable higher education, affordable healthcare, accessible healthcare in the university system. And so there are several points that we're trying to run on, and that would be one, ending the culture of fear. There's a culture of fear not only in the country, but more importantly on campus when it comes to academic freedom and free speech. We're hoping to restore and bring back the DEI measures that have been gut by this current board. And we're caught really at the capitulation of the Trump administration. We'll get into that a little bit more, I'm sure. I want to, end the crisis of high tuition and the housing crisis that we see on campus at the university, because there's a real shortage of affordable housing and the construction that's going on in the city of Ann Arbor and at Flint and Dearborn. There's a housing crisis there as well. I want to protect Michigan medicine and make sure that it maintains a public institution, not a private institution. We're seeing the expansion of Michigan medicine to several new hospital systems across the state of Michigan through partnerships. And what we're hoping to make sure that we're keeping the Michigan brand, the Michigan medicine brand, to maintain its public status as opposed to privatization of Michigan medicine through these extended partnerships in different parts of the state. And I want to have parity among three campuses. I've heard from University of Michigan Dearborn and Flint. My alma mater is Dearborn. About the disparity that we're seeing, not only with faculty and staff, but with facilities. There's a system of kind of operating in a silo when it comes to U of M Dearborn and Flint. And I want to see if we can support those other campuses the way Ann Arbor is supported through our board. And I also want to support, workers, whether it's through graduate workers, through lecturers, through faculty, like through SACWA, and I've met with members of SACWA. I want to make sure that the folks that make this university work on the day-to-day are supported, that they don't feel doxxed in their work, that they don't have a culture of fear in what they're trying to teach at this university, and that they're supported. And we want to have a platform that resonates with all this beautiful institution that we love and we hold near and dear to our hearts, the University of Michigan.
Well, thank you, Amir, for those comments. I'd like to open this for questions, and I think since we don't have that many people, if you just raise your hand on the screen, then I could see if you have a question. I have questions in reserve if there aren't any immediate questions. There, I saw Stu.
Oh, Bob.
Thanks for being with us, Amir. You mentioned in your comments that you are interested in improving the housing affordability crisis right now. That's a tough one. That's a big thing.
It is.
Do. What ideas do you have to deal with that?
Well, University of Michigan, if we look at it as an institution, it's a developer. The institution itself, the university, is one of the largest developers of real estate in the region. And when we're creating new housing or new areas where the university is buying up more land, we can put covenants in our new construction builds to make sure that a certain percentage of the new buildings that we're seeing on campus are slated for affordable housing. We can have covenants as the board to make sure that when these new developments are happening, that we're reserving a certain percentage for workers of the University of Michigan, that they're for young families that reside and want to have an employment with the University of Michigan, And so these types of covenants can happen at the helm of the Board of Regents. It's within their discretion and their ability to do so. What's interesting as the university, they are autonomous by the Michigan Constitution. So local zoning doesn't apply to the campus, to U of M. And so we want to make sure that we're working in partnership with the municipalities where the university is. If you look at the pushback we saw at Ypsilanti Township with the data centers, it was promised that they would buy 20 acres, and now it's gone up to 120 acres or more that was purchased. And the communications with that township really was poor. At the discretion of the university, they didn't let the city know ahead of time, and then it wasn't until the bulldozers arrived where people found out what was being developed there, and we had an extreme amount of pushback. And so we need to make sure that we're working with the municipalities, working with the people that are most affected by these decisions at the university level. And I'm of the position that we can develop housing, create more housing on North Campus, but put certain percentages of that housing to be slated for affordable housing for students and employees of the university.
Thank you, Amir. I see Emily had her hand up. I think Bob Zucker wanted to speak, if I'm correct, and then Tim Vaduva. Let's go to Emily.
Hi there. Thanks for being here. I have a couple of questions specific, but they're related. The specific one actually comes from one of our fellow Indivisible members, and I'm just getting her question up so I can ask it as accurately as possible. She says, can I ask about your stance towards gender-affirming care
Yes.
and MishMed's lackluster efforts in supporting trans people generally?
Yeah.
And my other question is sort of more general. How do you say no to Trump when he is so persuasive? How do you get the university to join you?
All right, twofold question. One, as a civil rights lawyer, I think that we need to stand with everybody. I think access to healthcare is important at every level. We shouldn't have a caveat as to who receives healthcare, especially as a public institution. It's reprehensible that our institution has cut gender-affirming care, and it's really it's reprehensible that it was cut for a marginalized community because they thought they could. I would like to see a institution that stands up for every individual, every person that needs care. It needs to be accessible to it. And so I'm a firm believer in allowing gender-affirming care. I'm a firm believer in supporting an institution that would defend anyone who is attacked, for instance, by the Trump administration for taking on this type of a care. What the university did is really use scare tactics in some of the law firms that they hired to kind of stoke fear in the institution and the medical providers, which put them in a position where they second guessed whether they should have this type of care at the university health system. And I think that as an institution, if we're able to defend folks who get in trouble, like the football coach, and we're willing to put the dollars to represent individuals who may have made a mistake, then we should be able to defend our staff, our nurses, our doctors, if they want to produce and help individuals who need this type of care. I was, approached in Ann Arbor one day by a mother who has a child who received a federal subpoena for the medical records of a minor, to see whether or not they have received gender-affirming care. So the federal government is looking for medical records of a minor, and the university is about to give it to them. And so to me, that's a violation of the trust of that individual. I think that we should stand firm in protecting the healthcare rights of everybody, and that shouldn't happen. And so when we go to the second question, how do you stand up to Trump? Well, this board is really mindful of fighting the Trump administration when it's affecting the pocketbook of the institution. This institution has sued 11 times. Never once on DEI, never once on gender-affirming care, never once on issues that affect individuals. This is, again, part of my People's Platform. But every time when it came to research dollars, when it came to dollars affecting the institution and the overhead of the institution, and they've won on certain cases. So the university knows how to sue. They know how to stand up when they want to, but it's more than just when it's convenient. We need to have an individual that pushes back when it matters. And so for me, I've stood up to the Trump administration in my career as a civil rights lawyer. I've defended individuals that have been assaulted by law enforcement. I've defended people who have been charged wrongfully by the federal government. And I myself was attacked and targeted by this Trump administration when I was representing the students here at the university. You know, if folks remember, when I was doing my criminal defense of the Encampment 11, I was coming home from spring break with my wife and my daughters in April of last year. In fact, it was today, exactly 1 year ago today. I was stopped by the Trump administration, by the Customs and Border Protection officers at Detroit Metro Airport, and they wanted to get into my cell phone. And they told me, we knew that you were an attorney, and we knew you're representing these students, but we want to talk to you about why you're taking on these cases. And I pushed back, and that got national media attention. And of course, I didn't allow them to get into my work product. I didn't allow them to get into my private data. But that's just one of the tactics the Trump administration had been doing at the time, going after the lawyers. And so we need the type of leadership that's willing to push back and not afraid to say no. And that's what I do every day. You know, when I put my shoes on, when I knot my tie in the morning, I'm going into court to stand up for individuals because I don't represent corporations. I represent people.
Okay, thank you, Amir. Bob Zucker, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I very much appreciate, Amir, your commitment to the community and making the university a much more visible and actionable member of it in defending the rights of individuals. But I also thought that your remarks were talking about the university as what I would call a political entity and also as a business. And as a former faculty member myself, I felt that I wasn't clear how your concerns would make a difference in terms of the academic activity of the university. And yet at the same time, my sense as, again, as a former faculty member, is that that has been significantly eroded by governmental regulations, by making funding much less available for questions that are important to science and ultimately to the human race, but that are not politically viable. And so I'm wondering whether you can comment some on your views of what you would be doing that would enhance the academic activities of the university as a scientific entity.
Well, I think that, you know, as a universities, you know, let's just get to the core of what a university does. Universities are supposed to be built to question power, not to submit to it. Universities are supposed to be built to teach freedom and to not to punish it. And they're supposed to be an opportunity where they're places where ideas are clashed, not where careers are ended. And so for me, universities are, you know, an opportunity that really is supposed to protect free thought. And it happens and it's done and it's designed to happen through, you know, what's being taught at the university. I think that we have to have, you know, colleges and schools that are going to allow the faculty to the freedom of what it is and the support of what it is that they want to teach. And that starts with, you know, with DEI as an example. You know, as a civil rights lawyer, I look at DEI as a constitution. That's like almost when they got DEI, it's almost like they cut, you know, the Civil Rights Act, saying that we're now in a post-racist, you know, era. Just because, perhaps, for instance, you know, we elected Barack Obama as president, racism is over in the United States. Let's gut the Civil Rights Act. That's what I look at when we got rid of the DEI policies on campus, because it goes more than just attracting, equity or attracting, minority students. It's about in every function of the university, whether through its how we recruit faculty, how we recruit students, how we recruit, um, the type of curriculum that we're doing it in a way that's equitable and inclusive of all walks of life from the state of Michigan. And so we need to have a campus that is, supported of the ideas, and the colleges that are supportive of the ideas of what the faculty are trying to profess. For me, I want to be a type of regent that's going to allow folks to teach within the values of what profess the values of what our institution represents. Um, and to me, it's an opportunity for us to make sure that people are supported and not afraid of taking on some of these ideas and giving them to what our students are looking for.
Thank you, Amir. We'll go to Tim and then Kirsten. We're at 7:23 and we're going to finish at 7:29, so keep that in mind. Tim, you're next.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your answers so far. I have a lot of questions, I guess, but to make it maybe a little bit fun, since we are preparing for this momentous basketball game,
All right.
it, it seems like the University of Michigan has had a lot of athletic success recently, but there's also been a lot of scandals, and we may be in for an AD search coming soon. Do you have any thoughts on that? And I really appreciate your people forward message, and maybe if you have any thoughts on expanding that to fans of the university and maybe even like patients of the medical system, and how you as a region would help with that.
So, I mean, it's encouraging to see, the athletics department has obviously had some scandal, but what we're seeing in the sports teams, the students and the student athletes that we have, they're doing phenomenal work. And so we should commend the amount of effort that goes into, whether it's the hockey team, the basketball team, the football team, the girls lacrosse team, for whatever sports team that we have. There's phenomenal athletes, phenomenal student athletes, and faculty and coaches across this campus, and it's really proud, not even just at U of M in Ann Arbor, but also in Dearborn, because one of the attorneys in my office is the head basketball coach at the University of Michigan Dearborn team, Mo Bazzi. So we're seeing student athletes excel, but we're also seeing a problem with leadership at the top. And I look at the example from the president of the university itself, right? We've had in the last 8 years 3 different presidents and 2 interim presidents. So that's 5 new presidents we've had in the last 8 years, which really goes to show that we have a problem with continuity of leadership at the university. And that starts with how the regents select our presidents. And so we need to make sure that we're including the actual staff, the faculty, all the people who are going to be working to make this institution run in that decision to pick leadership. I think in this last presidential search, Saccowa was put on the sideline. And I found that to be, which is the faculty senate, I found that to be concerning. People who are the stakeholders on campus need to have a choice, an opportunity in the decision making, and that goes for in the athletic department. I don't want to be the type of regent that's micromanaging certain departments. That's not what my intent is. But I want to make sure that we're having the right agenda and the right type of culture to make sure that we're having a long continuity of leadership at the levels of every department head and at the presidential head of the leadership for the university.
Thank you, Amir. Kirsten, it's 7:26, so you and Amir need to combine for 3 minutes. Go ahead, Kirsten.
Thanks. I mean, I agree with you about wishing the university had fought harder on certain issues, but I disagree with your characterization that they care more about money than people. Because the thing is, when a research grant gets cut, that is a lot of people who lose their jobs.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, you should come to the School of Public Health sometime and see the cleaned out offices, just empty corridors, right? people who have worked for the university for 20 and 30 years, done really important work in public health, which, by the way, is DEI work, are now being, there's no money and there's nothing for them to do. So, you can't just, I mean, I am happy the university is fighting to keep our research grants, and they've actually had some success. But I also wish they would fight more on the kinds of things you outlined. But I just think, I mean, with all due respect, I think that kind of characterization is a bit too simplistic because money means jobs.
I agree 100%, and I commend the fighting. No, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have fought by any means. I'm saying that they have the ability to fight and the
Right.
know-how to do it, and they've
Right.
done it successfully at times. And so that's why I'm saying that they should also fight to protect other policies as well on campus. And so it was good that they've protected the NIH dollars that were coming from the federal government, and other grants that came through. I don't take a position against that at all. So don't, I'm sorry if I confused in that communication, but certainly we know how to fight back, and we should. When it comes to issues like gender affirming care, that's something that should have been fought back. When it comes to the expansion, not to call DEI by another name, but what it was, and make it a certain, it has to be an institutional policy that stays, not to be cut when the next administration comes.
Amir, thank you. Rogerio, you've raised your hand. It's 7:28, and we have to finish in just a minute and a half. If you want to make more of a statement, you won't have time for Amir to respond.
I just want to thank Amir for letting us know that one can do two things at the same time. That one can recover money that the university is losing at the same time. One can have a position that cares for the people in the university at the same time. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you for having me.
Rebecca, why don't you go ahead and make your comment, and then we'll close it up.
Oh, well, I would say that Amir's characterization, in my experience, is absolutely accurate. From what I've seen, that underrepresented people at the university have been harmed by this board, and people who have brought forward violations to the board have also been disregarded by them.
Well, let's close it at that. I want to thank all of you for taking your time. These are important decisions. The Regent's role is critical, and it's important that we understand the candidates for Regent. I'd like to thank Amir for taking the time to join us today. And now I'd like to say class is released to go watch the basketball game, and go Blue. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for a wonderful evening. Go Blue.